Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. The night was thick with tension, air heavy with whispered secrets and the smell of betrayal. Pride at Kyle's laughter echoed down the dimly lit barracks. But in that laughter was the seed of something dark, a twisted sense of camaraderie binding the men together in shared sins. Each tale he told, of women seduced and lives lost to infidelity, spun the threads of their brotherhood tighter, binding them not just in arms but in guilt and hidden shame. In the world of the army, cheating wasn't just common, it was practically a rite of passage. But for some, it would lead to an abyss of heartbreak. Sergeant Chris was the cautionary tale no one wanted to hear. He had just returned from deployment, the glow of having served his country still radiating from him. But where triumph should have been celebrated, despair loomed instead. His newlywed wife, once the center of his universe, had betrayed him with a depth he couldn't fathom. As he lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, Chris felt the walls of the barracks closing in, trapping him in memories of a love that had turned sour. Back then, there was anticipation in the air, a buzz surrounding what life could be like post-deployment. Chris's wedding had been the highlight of his last leave, his laugh booming as he rejoiced with friends, a crown of pride on his head. But life in the desert had changed him, and with it, the vivid colors of his dreams faded into a dull gray. At that moment, he should have been celebrating his return, not rehearsing the pain that would soon consume him. Can you believe it? Just months before we went overseas, she wanted a trip with her friends to Cabo. He had exclaimed to me one night, the resentment mingling in his beer. It's like she doesn't care that we're risking our lives. What did you say? I asked, but already knew the answer. Chris was a pushover, as good a soldier as they come, but a cowardly fool in affairs of the heart. I caved. I thought maybe if I threw money at her she'd be happy, but in the end, she was just gone, you know? The emptiness in his voice echoed in the chilly barracks, freezing my own heart as I recognized the truth in his words. The first few letters from home had floated back to me, imbued with bright promises and the scent of love. But Chris's were different. They turned darker with each deployment. The line between love and betrayal blurred as he leaned into me, whispering. She told me she was pregnant when we were already halfway through hell, but I knew. I just knew the kid wasn't mine. In his eyes, I saw the flicker of a man betrayed, a soldier pushed to the brink of heartbreak. His story echoed a familiar narrative, a sordid tale we had all witnessed too many times before. Men strapped in shining uniforms too often found themselves entangled in webs of betrayal, spun by wives who should have held them dear. I noticed as the others drifted away, ignoring Chris's fading voice, the tension in their own hearts too visceral, too personal. But betrayal didn't just bind Kyle and Chris. It was a ghost that haunted every heart in this place, a graveyard of love buried beneath the army boots. And what did you do when you found out? I prompted, unable to let him slip into his own torment without giving him the chance to release, even if only a fragment of his soul. Chris took a deep breath, clenched his fists as if bracing for a punch. What could I do? I stayed with her, he rasped, the choke in his voice stinging like barbed wire. I didn't want to lose my family, but when she left me in Iraq with nothing but regrets to chew on, I realized none of it mattered to her. I was just a means to an end. The bitterness seeped into the air between us like a poison, and I contemplated the world we lived in. The hypocrisy was staggering. Men would put on rings and head to clubs like predators on the prowl. I had heard them laughing, discussing which wives wouldn't be missed. That night, Kyle recounted a tale that would linger long after the bar lights flickered off and the echoes of laughter faded. He spoke of a night when a friend's wife, tipsy and reckless, had approached him, daring and bold. You know how they would always laugh, talking about how a ring only posed a challenge? Kyle took a swig of beer, his bravado swelling higher as he recalled the little games played in the shadows of our lives, trading moments out of boredom and frustration. It became a procession of so-called friendship, a sickening cycle where temptation ruled, where boundaries dissolved like sugar in warm water until nothing remained. The men cheered for him, waving him over as he described that night of betrayal. The way she lingered on him, clutching his arm, whispering sweet nothings that momentarily made him feel valued as a man, even as another's betrayal wrapped around him like darkness. I shifted, clenching my fists, aware the camaraderie around us was crafted from a sense of moral decay. I had my own rules, hard boundaries I never crossed. Yet, there I found myself sinking into their stories, feeling the pull of their deception as it tethered us together in dark reverie. But betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow. One too many men tried to choke down with bottled laughter, moments built on the fleeting pleasure of secret encounters. Each story closed with an emptiness, a hollow shell of what could have been, and the laughter always faded, leaving behind whispers of revenge that few dared to utter. Eventually, I decided to spend my evenings away from the toxic atmosphere, seeking solace in the gym where echoes of clanging weights replaced laughter. It was here that reality hit, and the realization I was part of this sick joke. I still had feelings of rage, not just over Chris but for the world that swallowed men whole, the betrayal ending with broken spirits, and I unpacked my own experiences. A year later, a name, Carla, invaded my thoughts. The Dominican beauty had swirled into my life with her laughter and fiery spirit, captivating my heart until it felt like she was an extension of my own. Her constant quest to pull my attention grew almost intoxicating, yet her friendship with the mysterious turd burglar haunted my thoughts. Carla insisted they were just friends, but every fiber in my being rebelled against this lie slicked across her lips. As I carefully navigated my way through relationships, the thrill of love quickly turned to doubt, and Carla sensed it. We went to dinner at a steakhouse in Chapel Hill, in what felt like an attempt to rewrite our destined misfortune. But as plates piled high and wine flowed, the truth lay beneath the surface, threatening to bubble over. "Don't you think it's time we talk about us?" I asked, forcing a casual tone, but I couldn't mask the tension. The world shifted, and I sensed the impending betrayal like a vulture circling. But instead of opening up, infatuation twisted in her eyes as she filled the void with laughter, bantering about responsibility and aspirations that drifted away like smoke into the air. Yet, the hairs on my arms stood at attention, ringing alarm bells in my heart. I could not shake the shadows looming in the straight lines of her smile, and I wasn't ready to add myself to the endless roster of soldiers deceived by their beloved. So when I excused myself, pretending to head for the bathroom, I slipped out into the night, abandoning years of uncertainty, wrapped in stolen moments of joy. I had no plans of returning, letting the truth claw towards the surface, unveiling Carla in her true colors, just as her friend had warned me. When I heard her screeching voice tumbling through my phone, fat with hurt and confusion, I felt an odd sense of satisfaction. Let her wonder who would save her now. Let the turd burglar deal with her expensive tastes and empty promises. They would find themselves entangled in lies of their own making. As I watched the headlights of the cars flash by, I realized that betrayal could drive a man to dark places. I too would not go quietly into this bitter chill. There was more than one form of revenge, and in the back of my mind lay an intricate plan, though my own rules wouldn't allow for yet another heart to shatter beneath selfish desires. And as I steeled myself against the coming storm of wrath, the seeds of vengeance began to take root inside, hungry to strike back against the betrayal that had written so many tragic stories. Grief would not overcome me. I would not crumble at her feet. This was only the beginning of a war that would demand reckoning for every act of treason etched across my heart. With the weight of betrayal heavy on his shoulders, the days that followed blurred into a haze of determination and an explosion of dark emotions. Moments stolen with Carla ignited a fire within him, stoking the flames of revenge against her and the insipid bastard who deemed himself worthy of the heart she had twisted in her hands. Jake, the soldier whose very soul felt the sharp knife of betrayal, would make them pay. That next night, as the sun fell behind the tree line, casting shadows that danced like phantoms across the barracks, Jake stood at the edge of the common area, a storm brewing in his chest. Kyle was there, an unsuspecting witness to the terrible conclusion Jake had come to. Raucous laughter filled the room, incongruous to the battle raging within him. "You look like you've seen a ghost, man," Kyle nudged, his words barely breaking through the haze of Jake's thoughts. "I might have," Jake replied, a chill sliding through his spine as he felt the walls closing in around him like they had done countless times before. But this time, it was different. Hope had signed its death certificate the moment Carla's betrayal shattered the fragile trust he had placed in her. The lines of fate were drawn not in innocence, but in the dark, seething desire for revenge. As Jake leaned against the frigid steel of the bunk beds lining the barracks, something coldly rational settled within him. A plan unfurled like the dark wings of a raven, sinister and ready to descend upon those who had wronged him. The betrayal had been laid bare, and no longer would he be the passive observer in this morbid play. "I thought we were just having some fun. I didn't think it was some kind of true romance," he whispered to Kyle, more to himself than anyone else. "It sounds like she treated you like a bros night out, no strings attached." Kyle glanced sideways, a cautious expression dancing across his face. "Exactly. A night of betrayal. But they say the best revenge is living well. I'm not done yet, Kyle." "Not by a long shot." The steel in Jake's voice crystallized the intent growing inside him. Nights turned to days, remnants of curse words and visions of revenge carving paths into Jake's mind. He replayed every moment of the months spent with Carla, recalling the laughter they shared and the warmth she once offered. But everything felt like a lie under the fluorescent lights of revelation. Jake had waited too long, wallowing in pain, and now it was time to take charge. He knew how special Carla's emotional baggage was. It wasn't just her betrayal, it came hand in hand with vulnerabilities and weaknesses, especially around her beloved turd burglar. Yes, a target emerged clear in his mind, one that needed to be manipulated for personal gain. And Jake had an arsenal of tools he could employ. He knew the code they lived by, the language of the bar scene, the whispers carrying beyond their shared bottle of whiskey. Jake began to weave his strategy, each thread intentionally crafted until he had a web where both Carla and turd burglar would soon find themselves ensnared. Stepping into the remnant thrill of the chaos, Jake set a trap a mutual friend from the circle, someone who could easily plant the seeds of doubt within Carla's mind. "I heard Carla's been cuddling up to turd burglar," he whispered into the ear of a nearby soldier, a droplet of poison surging through the ranks. Days passed, each moment a charm of secrets as the trap was set meticulously. Carla remained blissfully unaware as her admirer twisted the knife deep into the unfolding story, the layers of betrayal revolving like stars around a black hole, pulling every light slowly into darkness. One day, as the whispers of deceit began to reach Carla, she turned to Jake, her expression laughter mixed with a steep edge of jealousy. "Can you believe he would try to twist this around? Turd burglar is the last person I'd ever cheat with," she declared, laughter lacing her words. But Jake caught the tremor beneath, a small domino that would ultimately lead to a collapse. "Don't take it so lightly," he replied calmly. "You know how men can get when they feel threatened." "Maybe you should remind him who you're with." The cold smile he wore felt like winter settling over their hearts, an iceberg crushing the warmth of naive love. Her laughter faded, uncertainty gnawing at her heart. He could practically feel her heart racing, the truth flickering in her eyes. He was creating shadows of suspicion and doubt, perfect for playing off the inadequacies buried deep within her. As darkness descended over the barracks that night, the whispers continued in clandestine conversations, each one knitting Carla and the turd burglar tighter into Jake's snare. With every shred of gossip that slipped through the cracks, he felt the tightening grip of revenge clasp around his heart, infusing him with a twisted sense of fulfillment. The storm would break, he could feel it brewing in the very marrow of his being. Nothing could suffice until the tarnished sword hung over them, but he needed the perfect moment, and patience was essential. The day eventually came when Jake overheard turd burglar bragging to friends about his conquests. His voice smug, his bravado misplaced. It ignited a flare of anger in Jake, a fire kindled not by just jealousy, but by the sheer audacity with which this fool flaunted his treachery. Suddenly, all those glimpses of joy shared with Carla felt like ash about to fan the flames of revenge. By the following weekend, Jake had a plan. With Carla off to another girls' night, her favorite bait for trouble, he invited turd burglar for an impromptu drink at the barracks. Nervously, the man arrived, laden with bravado, yet Jake sensed the vulnerability boiling beneath the surface. As they hoisted drinks, a slow burn ignited in Jake's chest. "You know, man, I can't blame you for how much attention Carla's been getting from other fellas lately, Jake started, his tone friendly but charged with underlying menace. Are you calling me a coward? Turd Burglar's bravado flickered. Fellas can't resist a lady like that. Jake shrugged, taking a deep sip of his drink, the taste bitter against the backdrop of his plotting. But you do realize she's been kinda, how can I put this delicately, open lately? The effect was immediate. Turd Burglar's face twisted, anger sparking in the depths of his eyes. You're stirring trouble with that, he shot back defensively. Come on, you can't honestly think she'd choose someone like you. Jake leaned closer, whispering, watch your back, buddy. You know how thin the ice is with someone as double-edged as her. I wouldn't want to be caught in your shoes. That last seed of doubt was planted, gleaming with chemically pure malice. As the drink flowed and the hot air thickened between them, Jake felt the raw power of revenge tightening, just waiting to uncoil and strike. Days turned to weeks, but the tension finally came to fruition when Carla returned home one fateful night, happiness radiating off her, utterly oblivious. As Jake had planned, their mutual friend, underlining the doubt Jake instilled, soon made the necessary moves to rake fires beneath them. Rumors flying about Turd Burglar's escapades finally thundered through the air, heavy with unwelcome tension. Standing amidst the whispered chaos that had unraveled his revenge tapestry, Jake marveled at the reckless abandon that had surfaced within Carla. The truth would hurt, but he yearned to crumble this beautiful creature he once adored, revealing her true colors reflected in the shards of shattered trust. Eventually, seeking out answers, Carla called for confrontation, her heart pacing nervously as she demanded confessions. Jake entered the air thick with anguish and fury, his heart beating fast beneath the weight of the moment. At what point did it become just fun for you? She hissed, her frustration twisted into a tight bow of anger. You think this is all a game? Through clenched teeth, Jake replied. You made it a game, Carla. You were playing with my heart long before anyone else could reach. Her face paled, and for a flickering moment, all the warmth in her eyes faded into a deep black void of consequence. Are you trying to blame me for what Turd Burglar did? You've been lying about him ever since you threaded lies into our hearts. Jake spat, the concrete truth hitting hard. What did you expect would happen? The illusion was destined to unravel. You want to redefine our relationship on your terms, but you're guilty in all this. I was merely a marionette in your theater of chaos. As she reeled from the verbal assault, Jake shone with a sick satisfaction, watching Carla's world spin out of control, all threads pulling taut before snapping against the realization of her deception. Then came the acidic silence, thick and heavy, followed by laughter. After a pause, Jake dropped the final truth that encapsulated his revenge in one perfectly crafted sentence. You wanted the open road? Here it is. I'm pulling my heart off the rabbit hole you crafted for me for years. A gaping wound opened on Carla's face as her world imploded, her reality shattered by the sudden weight of truth. You won't do this to me, she wailed, the facade of her fun-loving persona slipping silently over the edge. With that, the playground executioner gifted her with his final punch, cold and unwavering. I won't waste my heart on someone who can't even carry the weight of honesty. Stund. She crumbled before him, her tears staining the floor where once affection had thrived. This time there were no excuses, nor grim realities except the unyielding truth. He would watch her drown in her fabricated world of false promises and hollow sentiments. Revenge surged through him, the steady wave lifting him beyond what love once strained to offer. Reflecting on the echoes of their relationship, he turned back toward her defeat, each step marching confidently away, and whispered aloud, Welcome to the real world, sweetheart. The keys to this heartbreak will remain lost in the ruins of your choices. He relished in that last look. Her humiliation painted a glaring mark on his heart, a resounding victory mapped out perfectly in their shared history of lies. Jake stepped out into the night, a dark silhouette against the kaleidoscope of betrayal after the fine disaster, knowing he had unleashed a new chapter 1, drenched in revenge and the inevitability of fate. Jake had lost everything of their past, yet with every pulse of the night's cool breeze, he felt liberated, unburdened from everything that had chained him. Revenge had tasted sweet, and alongside the cold air, He wore each step like victorious armor, embracing the heart-wrenching catharsis washing over him. And in that darkened world, the only sound echoing behind him was her shattered heart, fluid in its downfall, shaping the landscape of a revenge so fulfilling, it rippled through his very being. Jake vowed never to forget the wild ride they had shared, a toxic lesson laid bare, reminding him that this was only the beginning. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like.